Chapter 2064. Enforce the law on behalf of the great emperor. Chapter 2064. Enforce the law on behalf of the great emperor. The millet emperor was like a deity as he stood in the sky above the Donghua palace. The divine watchtower stood next to him, like a gate of the heavens. It suppressed everything below. Everyone in the domain chief's manor could sense this frightening power. As expected, Millet Emperor had known of this news beforehand. He had left before this to return to the Wangshan watchtower and retrieved the divine watchtower. He was prepared to wage war. This time, there was going to be a huge commotion during the Donghua banquet. A storm was brewing. The other cultivators realized this. They looked up at the silhouette of Wangshan watchtower far off in the sky above. They were curious as to what had happened. Millet Emperor had carried the divine watchtower over here. He stood in the sky above domain chief's manor and suppressed this part of the sky. Emperor Yen accused in an indifferent tone, "Chief, what I said was true." The Millet Emperor knew before this that the members of his force had defied the rules set by Chief and had brutally murdered the Yen Kingdom and Lingshao Palace's disciples. Hence, he intentionally went back to make preparations and came here to pressure us. He does not take Chief seriously in this Donghua banquet. His tone was oozing with a chilly aura. Wangshan watchtower was a divine item and was very powerful. Rumor had it that it was an ancient treasure. There were also rumors that Wangshan watchtower was a gate of the heavens before the heavenly path collapsed. By some fateful encounter, the Millet Emperor obtained it. Its might was extremely frightening. Various cultivators were cautious of him. This was also the reason why they eliminated Supreme Deity Donglai but not the Millet Emperor. Carrying Wangshan watchtower, the Millet Emperor was already enough to pose a threat to them. This time, Chief organized the Donghua banquet and gathered the various forces. The disciples of Wangshan watchtower first defied the rule of killing cultivators in the secret zone. Now, the Millet Emperor wishes to stir up a storm in the Donghua domain by carrying the divine watchtower over here. Incredible, Lingshao Palace Lord, Ling Yunzi also spoke up. It was as though he placed all the responsibility on the Millet Emperor and the members of Wangshan watchtower. From the looks of it, they had to get rid of Millet Emperor and the members of Wangshan watchtower this time. Otherwise, they would eventually become a thorn in their side. Chief, the Millet Emperor might have figured out something, Ling Yunzi told Chief Ning over transmitted thoughts. Chief Ning looked up at the Millet Emperor. Before this, Ninghua had also briefly explained to him what had happened. Based on his judgment, be it the cultivators of Wangshan watchtower or the Millet Emperor, they probably no longer trusted him. Hence, they had immediately prepared for battle. That meant that the other party had indeed figured out something. It was just that owing to his ability and position, they did not state it outright. They could only endure it for now. When he thought of this, Chief Ning made his decision. From the looks of it, the Millet Emperor and the forces of Wangshan watchtower needed to be eliminated. The divine item of domain chief's manor, the heavenly scroll of sealing, had been destroyed. They needed to replace it with another divine item to fortify the position of the domain chief's manor. Although this divine watchtower was not compatible with Chief Ning's cultivation, it was still considered an absolute treasure. Chief Ning said, "Millet Emperor, this is the Donghua banquet. For you to carry the divine watchtower here, are you planning to suppress the various forces of the Donghua domain as well as my domain chief's manor? How presumptuous of you." No one could sense his emotions from his tone. He still appeared very calm, but his words already indicated his stance. Before this, he had said that both sides should settle their differences. There seemed to be some changes. These words were already chastising the Millet Emperor. Before the Millet Emperor arrived, Emperor Yen wanted to attack Yi Futian. Chief Ning did not speak out and did not stop Emperor Yen. Now that the Millet Emperor had arrived, although the commotion he created was larger, he only did this as a last resort. If he did not do so, he could not withstand the power of Emperor Yen and Ling Yunzi, two peak figures, alone. Hence, he had directly carried the divine watchtower over here. He was already prepared for the worst-case scenario. "Chief, you worry too much. The Yen Kingdom and Lingshao Palace have gone against the Wangshan watchtower at every turn," the Millet Emperor replied. "Hence, I had no choice but to return home and prepare. I carried the divine watchtower here only to ensure that I can lead the cultivators of Wangshan Watchtower away from here. I hope Chief can forgive this. His voice shook the skies. If that is the case, put your divine watchtower away and let me handle this matter, Chief Ning continued as he looked at the Millet Emperor. Yi Futian and the other members swept a glance at the chief. He would handle the matter? Before this, he had already shown how he would handle the matter. He would not get involved with either side, allowing both parties to settle it among themselves. Just now, when the Millet Emperor was not around, Emperor Yen directly attacked Yi Futian. Fortunately, Emperor Shi had stopped Emperor Yen. Now that the Millet Emperor had returned, Chief Ning wanted him to put the divine watchtower away. This was Chief Ning's way of handling things. This matter involves the grudge between our two parties. Chief, you do not need to worry. We will settle it ourselves. How could the Millet Emperor possibly put the divine watchtower away? He looked down below and said, the grudge between Wangshan Watchtower and the Yen Kingdom as well as Lingxiao Palace will not involve any other force. This was what Chief Ning had promised before. Both sides would settle it among themselves. Chief Ning stared at the Millet Emperor as pressure emanated from his body. His gaze also gradually turned cold. He said, this is the domain chief's manner of the Donghua domain. Today is also the Donghua banquet. It seems that you do not take my words seriously anymore. The Millet Emperor looked at Chief Ning. These words were completely unreasonable. From his attitude, Millet Emperor also understood that Chief Ning wanted to forcefully be a part of this and chose his side. From the looks of it, them wanting to bear the ridicule and temper their rage in order not to offend the domain chief's manner would not work. The other party was not going to let them go. That is not my intention, the Millet Emperor replied. The Millet Emperor had already stated his stance, but if Chief Ning wanted to take part forcefully, he could not do anything about that. Any reason that Chief Ning gave would have been sufficient. Humph, Chief Ning coldly snorted. The pressure from his body grew stronger, becoming extremely intense. His gaze was no longer calm, instead containing a cold aura. He stared at the Millet Emperor in the sky and said, Yi Lianyan defied my will and brutally murdered the cultivators who entered the secret zone. Regardless of whatever reason he had for doing so, what is done is done. I wanted to give face to you and Wangshan Watchtower by not getting involved even though he defied my rule. However, you brought your divine watchtower here and entered domain chief's manor with such a show of force. It seems that you are the same as Yi Lianyan. You have not taken the Donghua banquet seriously at all. As Chief Ning was speaking, his aura of the great path emanated outwards and enveloped the endless space. Everyone could feel the pressure coming from him. In Donghua Palace, the giant-level figures all looked at Chief Ning. They revealed looks of profound understanding. So that was why. From the very beginning, Chief Ning, who ruled over the Donghua domain, had already decided. He allowed the other party to go after Yi Futian and did not get involved, appearing as an amiable person. However, given the current situation where the Millet Emperor came with the divine watchtower, he could no longer maintain his facade. He could only lay his stance bare. He was going after Yi Futian. Yi Futian would not be able to escape. The Millet Emperor swept a glance at Chief Ning. As expected, he had directly revealed his goal and dropped his facade. The Millet Emperor threatened, I do not care who set the rules. I only know that the disciples of Wangshan Watchtower have done nothing wrong. Today I will leave with them. I will kill anyone who dares touch a cultivator of Wangshan Watchtower. Whoever kills a junior of Wangshan Watchtower, I will do the same to their juniors. He stepped forward and placed his hand on the divine watchtower. Terrifying loud rumbling sounds could be heard immediately. Countless divine tablets seemed to appear in the sky. They descended from above and enveloped the entire domain chief's manor. There were so many people in domain chief's manor. Even Chief Ning was cautious. Unless they could instantly subdue the Millet Emperor, if Wangshan Watchtower came crashing down, the heavens and earth would be shattered and torn apart. Countless people would die then. He would kill the juniors of whoever killed his juniors? Did this include Ninghua? The Millet Emperor is quite savage today, the thunder-punishing Sky Lord said to Emperor Shi over transmitted thoughts. This time, the Millet Emperor had fallen out with the domain chief. Even though he was going against 3 giant-level figures, one of which was the chief who stood at the peak of the Donghua domain, he was still unafraid. "Emperor," she replied over transmitted thoughts. "Before this, I found it strange as to why Ling Yunzi was always flattering Chief. Now, I seem to have glimpsed some clues as to why. From the looks of it, Chief and Ling Yunzi have long been in cahoots. Their relationship is most likely not ordinary. There is also the great Yen ancient royal family. It seems that there is more than meets the eye about the death of supreme deity Donglai. They were all figures at the peak of the domain. They weren't foolish." The other giant-level figures also vaguely realized what was going on. However, the Millet Emperor's show of force still came as a surprise to everyone. As expected of the Millet Emperor, only a cultivator at the peak would show such boldness. When Ling Yunzi and Emperor Yen heard Millet Emperor's words, they laughed sinisterly. They were waiting for this end result. The only pity was that Ling He and Yen Dongyang had perished. However, the Millet Emperor and the members of Wangshan Watchtower were about to join them. After today, there would be one less figure and force at the peak of the Donghua domain. Since the Millet Emperor had said so, Chief Ning did not hold back. Chief Ning looked up at the Millet Emperor. He had an imposing manner, and his expression was cold and indifferent. He said, "I was tasked by the great emperor to oversee the Donghua domain. I have always hoped for the prosperity of the Donghua domain and that more prominent figures would emerge. Although the various forces of the Donghua domain had their conflicts and disputes, I also hoped that they would get along. Hence, I organized the Donghua banquet. I also set rules before all of you entered the secret zone. However, the Millet Emperor wishes for the peace of the Donghua domain to be shattered. If that is the case, I will enforce the law on behalf of the great emperor. Millet Emperor, I find you guilty. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2065, Falling Out? Chapter 2065, Falling Out, enforcing the law on behalf of the great emperor. Millet Emperor was guilty. Ning Yuan was the domain chief of the Donghua domain, the one who oversaw the domain. He claimed that Millet Emperor was guilty and that he was enforcing the law on behalf of the great emperor. He officially declared that he was going to kill Millet Emperor. The significance of his statement in the Donghua domain could not be understated. These words would determine the fate of the Wangshan Watchtower as well as Millet Emperor. At that moment, countless cultivators inside and outside of Domain Chief's manor felt their hearts tremble. The name of the Wangshan Watchtower might be erased from the Donghua domain. After all, Ning Yuan was the overseer of the Donghua domain. Since he had made up his mind, it was impossible for the Wangshan Watchtower to exist in the domain anymore. Even the giant-level figures of the various forces looked at Ning Yuan in astonishment. He was going to deal with the Wangshan Watchtower. They never imagined that such a storm would be swept up during the Donghua banquet. It seemed that this chief had long intended to eliminate the Wangshan Watchtower. What greater schemes were at play here? Millet Emperor lowered his head and looked at the proud figure standing in Donghua Palace. Before the Donghua banquet was held, he already had a bad premonition. After Li Changsheng sent him the message, he understood why Ling Shao Palace dared to go against the Wangshan Watchtower together with great Yen ancient royal family so unscrupulously in front of everyone back on Turtle Deity Island. It turned out that Domain Chief's manor was backing them. Hence, they had no scruples to do so. Recalling that Domain Chief's manor had stepped out to mediate the matter of the death of Supreme Deity Donglai, Millet Emperor could not help but feel a sense of mockery. He never imagined that he had been fooled for so many years and that the person behind all this was the Domain Chief, Ning Yuan. He had always wanted to get to the bottom of the matter. Now that he finally knew the truth, he felt a wave of sadness and grief. Ning Yuan, the Domain Chief of the Donghua domain, had such sinister schemes. This was definitely not good for the domain. "Chief, you probably have wanted to eliminate me for a long time," Millet Emperor suddenly said. "Now, you finally found an excuse to do so." Since Ning Yuan had already decided to enforce the law on behalf of the great emperor and was prepared to personally join the battlefield to deal with Millet Emperor, then Millet Emperor did not need to hesitate. He did not need to tolerate the other party anymore. If that was the case, they might as well stir the pot even further and let the imperial palace of the divine prefecture know what kind of person the domain chief was. Ning Yuan looked up at Millet Emperor. Yet, Millet Emperor wishes to stir up conflict and does not listen to dissuasion. If that is the case, from this day forth, the name of the Wangshan Watchtower shall be eliminated from the Donghua domain. However, this matter does not concern the disciples of the Wangshan Watchtower. I can overlook their involvement. However, Yi Liuyan defied my rules, so he needs to remain here. The rest of you may leave. The name of the Wangshan Watchtower was eliminated from the Donghua domain. As expected, Domain Chief Ning Yuan would not allow the Wangshan Watchtower to continue existing. However, he was willing to spare the cultivators of the Wangshan Watchtower. He only wanted Yi Futian. The giant-level figures understood everything when they saw this scene. The disciples of the Wangshan Watchtower were insignificant to Ning Yuan. It was the same with Eastern Deity Island. Since the chief spared Eastern Deity Island once, he would not go after them again. After all, he was the ruler of the Donghua domain. He could not go around massacring people as he pleased. However, he had to take Yi Futian into custody. This person had extraordinary talent, possibly even above that of Zhong Chan. Prior to this, he had also broken the seal. Chief Ning did not know what benefits Yi Futian had received from doing so yet. How could he let Yi Futian go? Ning Yuan rejected Yi Futian's appeal to join Domain Chief's manor as a cultivator. He wanted Yi Futian's life. The Renhuangs of the Wangshan Watchtower in all directions looked at Ning Yuan. Li Changsheng said, "The Wangshan Watchtower is not in the wrong in this incident today. Since Chief has made your stance clear, you do not need to reprimand the Wangshan Watchtower as well as blame Master. All of this stems from the Yan Kingdom and Ling Shao Palace. The world will be the judge of who is right and who is wrong. As for leaving here as disciples of the Wangshan Watchtower, we will naturally leave together." "You seek your own deaths," said Emperor Yan as he swept a glance at the crowd. The Renhuangs of the Wangshan Watchtower would all die today. In reality, they had always wanted to deal with the Wangshan Watchtower. Now they had the chance to do so. After today, the Wangshan Watchtower would cease to exist in the Donghua domain. Changxing, Zhong Chan, take the others and leave. Retreat back to the Wangshan Watchtower, Millet Emperor ordered. This battle was a battle of giant-level figures. Li Changxing and the others would be at a severe disadvantage here. Emperor Yan and Ling Yunzi stared at Li Changxing and the others. Millet Emperor continued saying, "If any of you attack the juniors of the Wangshan Watchtower, I will not hesitate to massacre all of you." "Understood," Li Changxing replied as he nodded his head. They understood the situation they were in. Remaining here was extremely disadvantageous for them. They could only retreat for now. With their levels of cultivation, they were of no help to Millet Emperor. It was only after they had escaped that Millet Emperor would have the chance to retreat as well. Millet Emperor had carried the Divine Watchtower here for their sakes. Otherwise, with his level of cultivation, if he had escaped before this, no one could have done anything about it. "Let's go," Li Changxing said. The cultivators of the Wangshan Watchtower immediately took to the skies and headed out of Domain Chief's manor. Ning Yuan looked at them and said, "I said that Yi Liuyan must stay behind." As he said this, Ning Hua stepped out. At the same time, other cultivators from Domain Chief's manor also dashed in the direction Li Changxing and the others were escaping. On the other side, the Renhuangs of Great Yan Ancient Royal Family and Ling Shao Palace also left their positions and chased after Li Changxing and the others. However, Ning Yuan, Emperor Yan and Ling Yunzi, these three giant-level figures did not move. They remained standing where they were, seemingly uninvolved with this matter. However, the situation was clearly extremely disadvantageous for the cultivators of the Wangshan Watchtower. Ning Hua alone was an invincible existence and was difficult to deal with. Emperor Yan and Ling Yunzi looked at Millet Emperor mockingly. Even if the three of them did not attack, Ning Hua and the other cultivators were more than sufficient to kill off Li Changxing and the others. None of them would escape. Whether Millet Emperor himself would make it out of here alive today remained to be seen. Millet Emperor did not attack. Pressure of the great path that was frightening beyond comparison descended upon the area. However, Millet Emperor was still waiting for Li Changsheng and the rest to escape far from this region. Ning Yuan was similarly waiting for Ning Hua and the other cultivators to leave and for the members of Domain Chief's Manor to retreat. They all had their concerns. If they immediately started fighting, the junior figures would not be able to withstand their power. Both sides clearly did not want such a situation to occur. Hence, they had reached a tacit understanding. However, the pressure in the vast space became more and more intense. It was suffocating. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. The Millet Emperor's divine consciousness shrouded the boundless space. Yi Futian and the other cultivators from Wangshan Watchtower were gone, but they were still within the scope of detection. At his level of cultivation, his divine consciousness was more than powerful. The Millet Emperor's divine consciousness shrouded the boundless space. Yi Futian and the other cultivators from Wangshan Watchtower were gone, but they were still within the scope of detection. At his level of cultivation, his divine consciousness was more than powerful. Not only him, but it was the same with the other masters. Though they were physically here, they had also noticed the movement in the distance. Ning Hua and the others didn't seem to be in a hurry to catch up with the cultivators from Wangshan Watchtower. They seemed to deliberately keep their distance. Besides, many cultivators from the Domain Chief's Manor were also retreating. However, many Renhuang outside the Domain Chief's Manor were fixated on the sky above, their hearts greatly troubled. The Donghua banquet had turned into an internal conflict of the Donghua domain, and even the Domain Chief's Manor was involved. The Millet Emperor believed that the chief had taken aim at Wangshan Watchtower. "Those who have nothing to do with this matter, leave within 10 breaths' time," said the Millet Emperor, allowing other Renhuang to leave this space. Everyone stiffened but soon flickered their way to withdraw speedily without any hesitation. The Millet Emperor was preparing to battle right here. In an instant, all the cultivators retreated into the distance, getting as far away from the Domain Chief's Manor as possible. The Millet Emperor looked down at Chief Ning Yuan and said, "Ning Yuan, you keep claiming that this is a grievance among Wangshan Watchtower, the Yen Kingdom, and Lingshao Palace, but in the end, you made your move. You are not worthy of being in charge of Donghua Domain." When his voice fell, the watchtower flew high into the sky as a terrifying power of the Great Path was released from it. Suddenly, with the Domain Chief's Manor as the center, countless divine tablets and stone gates fell down, turning into a divine wall that sealed the Domain Chief's Manor. From where he was, the watchtower seemed to be the only exit, like a heavenly gate. The Domain Chief's Manor was suppressed and shut down, clearly meant to be a battlefield. The Millet Emperor completely let himself go without any further inhibitions. The disciples of Wangshan Watchtower had to resign themselves to their fates. He closed up the space and would not participate. Neither could the other 3 major opponents, so they had to depend on their own destiny now. After seeing him taking action, the sacred light surrounded the space, and within the forbidden space, there were countless characters of seals appearing, covering this space. Some even directly falling on the divine wall, blocking the way of suppression, creating a twofold blocking. It was based on a tacit understanding that they let those youngsters leave without the participation of either side. This was their battle. If one of them took action, none of the youngsters on either side would be able to bear it. Thus, the situation at hand. Now, both sides had sealed the space at the same time, using it as a battlefield. The rest of the youngsters had to depend on themselves as to what happens later. Of course, to Ning Yuan, they had an absolute advantage. Ning Hua led Renhuang from the 3 major powers in pursuit. Where could those Renhuang from Wangshan Watchtower escape? In that battle, Ning Yuan had no doubts, and even fewer doubts about what was about to happen here. The Millet Emperor himself was extraordinary in strength, and now that he had come with the watchtower, his combat power increased to another level. He was definitely a dangerous character at this point. However, the divine items at Domain Chief's manor were destroyed, and neither Emperor Yen nor Ling Yunzi had carried any divine items with them. Even so, as the three major figureheads, they still had the absolute advantage. Ning Yuan was even confident that he himself alone was enough to deal with the Millet Emperor, who came with the watchtower. However, on account that the Millet Emperor had thrown all care to the wind, he could not afford to be careless. The Millet Emperor stood under the watchtower, like a deity who had integrated with the great path of this heaven and earth. Rumbling thunder rang out as the great path of suppression enveloped this space. The three major figureheads felt they were being fettered by the invisible oppressive force. Besides them, there were also other powerful figures that remained in Donghua Palace. They did not leave but stood by to watch the battle, wanting to witness this showdown. The watchtower released an extremely dazzling divine brilliance, and an ancient aura came from beyond the sky. Countless divine brilliance fell on the Millet Emperor as if he had been completely integrated with the watchtower. He raised his palm and pressed it downward in the sky. From the firmament, a shining divine light bloomed as it penetrated the sky. As if the sky had collapsed, it attacked the three cultivators in a flash. At this time, outside where those Renhuang had retreated to in the distance, they experienced true fright as they witnessed the situation yonder. With the Domain Chief's manor as the center, there was a storm of the great path frantically rushing towards it. There seemed to be a divine light falling from the sky that lit up the forbidden void with dazzling radiance, but they couldn't see the battle inside the battlefield. Today, the Millet Emperor came carrying the watchtower to battle Chief Ning Yuan, and Emperor Yen was there with Ling Yunzi. This conflict that was aimed at Wangshan Watchtower would be avenged sooner or later, because of the death of Supreme Being Donglai, because the man behind all of it was Chief Ning Yuan of the Domain Chief's manor. Therefore, this day would come sooner rather than later, and they had to destroy Wangshan Watchtower. Yi Futian's appearance had provided the perfect excuse to speed up their plan to attack Wangshan Watchtower. Even if Yi Futian were not a factor, there would be other excuses, just like the intervention of the Domain Chief's manor was purely for superfluous reasons. I never expected it would be the chief. Storm Demon's eyes were icy. He, too, understood that the person who caused this chaos was Domain Chief, Ning Yuan, of Domain Chief's manor. Without him, the Yen Kingdom and Lingxiao Palace would not dare to do this. Although they were able to suppress Wangshan Watchtower, they were not so blatant as to commit outright slaughter. After all, the Millet Emperor was there. If they were to start the massacre, they would be equally in trouble. But because of Ning Yuan, those people dared to be so imprudent. Back then, Supreme Being Donglai probably perished under such circumstances as well. The cultivators from the Yen family levitated into the sky, intercepting them. There was an even stronger reinforcement behind to hunt them. There seemed to be nowhere for them to escape. "Continue ahead and attack," Li Changxing said. As he was approaching the Lung family compound, he was releasing a terrible murderous intent. Not only him, but Zhong Chan and other Renhuang were the same. The murderous intent on them was frightening. A long spear appeared in Yi Futian's hand as a monstrous battle intent erupted, and divine light surrounded his body. Cold murderous intent shot out from his eyes, accompanied by an extreme chill. The group was moving fast, and within a few moments, they had already arrived at Lung's family compound. The Yen family cultivators stood in the void above the ruins, and an aura of the great path erupted. Under the leadership of the Yen family's patriarch, they lined up with a true dragon surrounding each of them, suppressing this corner of the sky. When they saw those cultivators coming their way, they immediately unleashed the attack of the great path at the same time. All the true dragons roared and rushed forward, flooding the void. Li Changxing and Zhong Chan were the fastest, traversing through directly, and the body of those massive divine dragons shattered and burst one by one. Likewise, Yi Futian was fast to the extreme, turning into a stream of light. A powerful Renhuang of the seventh realm was in front of him, with a mighty aura erupting from his body. When he saw Yi Futian attack, he raised his hand to blast out an overwhelming dragon seal. Buzz! Yi Futian's spear lanced out, and the overwhelming spear intent blasted directly on the dragon seal, splitting it from the middle, shattering it. The most frightening thing was that this was a mass attack, a killing spree on a large scale. In this short while, dozens of Renhuang perished. It was a day of reckoning for them. The cultivators of the Yen family fared the worst. Generally speaking, their strength was relatively weaker compared to the others, and they were right at the center of the fight. In addition, Futian deliberately retaliated against them, so he didn't hold back. In just a moment, there weren't many Renhuang left from the Yen family. The surrounding cultivators thought that this was the price of participating in the struggle among top forces. Participating without the requisite confidence and strength was all but equivalent to death. Even as these cultivators were surrounded to attack those from Wangshan Watchtower, they could not vanquish them. In the first confrontation, followed by Futian's attack, the Yen family had lost over half of their Renhuang in these two fights. They had borne the brunt of the most damage. In this battle, although the Yen family destroyed the Lung family with whom they had long had grudges, they themselves didn't fare much better in the end. "Kill him," clan leader Yen said coldly. He himself was tangled up with clan leader Leng, and when he saw the cultivators of his clan being slaughtered thus, his eyes were full of strong murderous intent. When his words fell, those upper Renhuang from the Yen family who were still alive walked toward Futian. Among them were 2 Renhuang of the 8th realm and 5 Renhuang of the 7th realm. It was a terrifying group for sure. They took out long spears at the same time and launched them toward Futian. The golden dragon spear cut through the void, piercing through it, and descended instantly in front of Futian. In a short while, a terrifying storm appeared in front of Futian, which seemed to be stirred up by a terrible dragon. The imperial glory of the great emperor was released. Futian's body seemed to have been transformed into a golden divine tree, which strengthened his spiritual will to its extreme. This was the divine tree obtained from Eastern Deity Island. A boundless and majestic breath came out from it as the branches and leaves of the divine tree reached into the surrounding spaces, engulfing those attacking dragon's shadows. Those dragon shadows were coming fast with great momentum, as if they were mowing down the divine tree, madly tearing at its branches and leaves. However, those branches and vines seemed endless, spreading into the far distance at an even faster speed, covering this corner of the sky. In an instant, within a radius of hundreds of miles, it was full of branches and leaves from the divine tree. A towering divine tree of thousands of meters stood between heaven and earth. The yin-yang pattern above rained on the catastrophic light of the great path, forming a horrific closed loop. In the space of this closed loop, there were 2 completely different auras from the power of yin and power of yang. For all the cultivators trapped in it, they felt an extreme discomfort, as if this was Futian's great path field, and no power between heaven and earth could come into it. Boom! Another world of starry skies appeared in this space, surrounded by stars. At this moment, Futian stood there like the master of this world. Even a Renhuang of the 8th realm felt the threat of death. Futian, at this moment, was extremely dangerous. Buzz! The infinite divine brilliance fell down, attacking those cultivators. The branches and vines also reached into the crowd at the same time. The bodies of those several cultivators of the 7th realm were swallowed up, then obliterated by the light from the yin-yang pattern, without a trace. At the same time, Futian's body was moving. He stepped across the void to attack a cultivator of the 8th realm. A golden divine flame appeared around the cultivator, burning the vines that rolled towards him. There was a terrible golden divine dragon around him. He was holding a dragon spear with the golden flame. The light of catastrophe fell from the void, and the dragon spear in his hand pierced into the sky, turning into terrifying light beams. But at the same time, Futian, who was coming toward him, slapped his left hand forward. Suddenly, infinite numbers of starry stone tablets came down, like ancient divine gates. There was also the sound of Buddha lingering, which bewitched the soul. The other was clad in a golden dragon armor, and the divine flaming dragon spear danced in his hands. The banging sound continued as each of the stone tablets exploded and shattered. The man's spear method was astounding. But at this moment, Futian appeared in front of him. With another palm strike, it sent him into the starry world, while the ancient divine tablets and the golden divine elephants coming down at him. Although his spear method was domineering, after his spear strike, he saw Yi Futian in the void. He was godlike. He couldn't help wondering in his heart, how could a Renhuang of the fourth realm be so threatening to him? Boom! A divine tablet came from the starry sky and was pierced by his spear again. But in the next moment he saw a pair of icy eyes that caused his thoughts to pause for a moment. Just as he broke free from its constraint, he saw more divine tablets slamming down. Suddenly he felt a powerful sense of danger. When he stabbed the spear again, a shadow of the spear flashed away, and he realized that something was terribly wrong and tried to get away. Bang! With a loud sound, the divine tablet that was smashing down was broken open again by him, but he felt an extreme chill as a shadow flashed away. The next moment, he saw a man with a spear appearing in front of him, and that spear had already gone into his forehead. Chapter 2069. The One to Die. Chapter 2069. The One to Die. Yi Futian alone controlled one side of the battlefield, killing many Renhuang. But the vast area centered around the Leng family compound had expanded to hundreds of miles, with several battlegrounds in action. In the battlefield area where Yi Futian was located, he focused on killing the Yan family's cultivators. However, comparatively speaking, Wangshan Watchtower was still much weaker. This time, in addition to the Yan family that acted as the interceptor, the forces that came to chase after them also included the cultivators from the Domain Chief's Manor, the Yan Kingdom, and Lingxiao Palace. This kind of opposition was far stronger than what Wangshan Watchtower could match. They were not really on the same level, and many extraordinary characters were extremely powerful. Take Domain Chief's Manor, for example. In addition to Ninghua, there was a middle Renhuang of the sixth realm with incredible strength. He possessed a perfect great path. He was known as the Thousand-Armed Sword Emperor, who looked around middle age with excellent combat effectiveness. He had been cultivating for many years and was much older than Ninghua. However, his realm was not anywhere close to that of Ninghua's. Even so, each of his realms had a solid foundation, which made his combat effective particularly terrifying. Even inside the Domain Chief's Manor, he enjoyed unusually high regard and position. Before entering the Domain Chief's Manor, he had already made his name in the Donghua heavens. There was only one purpose for entering the Domain Chief's Manor. After breaking into the realm of Upper Renhuang, one could still maintain the perfection of the Great Path, thus reaching the strongest realm to experience the three catastrophes of the gods. At this time, several Renhuang from the Leng family and Wangshan Watchtower had already perished by his hand. He cultivated in swordsmanship and the Great Path of Space until he finally formed one-of-a-kind swordsmanship. He had studied many books in Donghua Pavilion, mastered and comprehended all the great swordsmanship methods, and blended them all into his own abilities. He realized and created superb swordsmanship, the Thousand Arms Divine Sword, and because of this, he was known as the Thousand Arms Sword Emperor. In the void, the Thousand Arms Sword Emperor was attacking a Renhuang. As he allowed his swordsmanship to bloom, there seemed to be 1,000 arms swinging the swords at the same time above the sky. Thousands of sword shadows were actually real sword strikes. He was attacking a Renhuang of the seventh realm from the Leng family. The light of the swords was shining, and the sword of the hurricane created countless terrible space storms in the sky. The light of the swords tore through the space and slashed towards those thousands of sword shadows. Many sword shadows shattered, but there was one that seemed endless. Under the Thousand Arms Divine Sword, its divine light traversed the space, cutting through the void, and could strangulate a space in just an instant. Everything inside would turn into dust and disappear forever. The sword of the Thousand Arms Sword Emperor erupted with an astonishing howl, piercing through the eardrums of those who heard it. Faintly, the sound waves that tore through the space could be detected. It was terrifying. The light of the sword Aurora shattered under the sword shadow, and countless divine swords converged toward where Chen Yi was. It was as if he was the place where the Thousand Arms divine swords meet, the absolute center. When this sword strike fell, Chen Yi would surely turn into dust with nothing left. Thousands of divine swords arrived instantly, but Chen Yi seemed not to see them, as he merely stood there quietly. In the next moment, a divine light burst from Chen Yi's body, and as this light bloomed, all those looking at the battlefield were blinded temporarily. When they looked there again, Chen Yi's temperament seemed to have morphed. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chen Yi's action brought him a blood feud with the domain chief's manor. How could the domain chief's manor let him off in the future? In fact, even cultivators from Wangshan Watchtower didn't understand why Chen Yi would do such a thing. "Chen Yi, do you know what you're doing?" someone from the domain chief's manor bellowed at him from afar. Of course. Chen Yi raised his head and darted a glance at them. The person shouting at him was an 8th Order Renhuang. However, Chen Yi didn't show any fear at all and charged at him like a streak of light. Furious, the 8th Order Renhuang unleashed his great path to fight against Chen Yi. Nevertheless, a dead body fell from the sky in a little while. The 8th Order Renhuang was slew by Chen Yi. Chen Yi is also capable of killing 8th Order Renhuangs, just like Yi Lianyan. Besides Ning Hua, the best cultivator in the Donghua heavens, 2 more legendary fighters emerged during this battle. Yi Futian had the will of the Emperor, and Chen Yi had the illumining body of the Great Path. One was a 4th Order Renhuang, who could do away with high-level Renhuang at the 8th Order. Yi Futian and Chen Yi made many cultivators from top forces feel ashamed for not being able to hold a candle to the two of them. But at this point, the crowd was startled by a deafening noise coming from somewhere. They looked in that direction and heard a voice bellowed with menace, "You're courting death. Zong Chan is in danger." People saw that it was Ning Hua speaking. He knocked Zong Chan down and severely injured him. Although Zong Chan was a prominent cultivator from Wangshan Watchtower, he couldn't stand firm against Ning Hua. Bleeding from his mouth, Zong Chan could feel the blood force rolling and surging in his body. The gate to world suppression was bust. The entire area was enveloped by the Grand Seal Divine Matrix in the sky. Ning Hua shot a dark glance at Chen Yi. Since Chen Yi begged to be killed, he would certainly grant his wish. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Then, Ning Hua raised his hands and launched the counterattack. The divine monuments exploded at once. Ning Hua turned himself into a blurred shadow and came upon Zong Chan. As the divine light of the seals blazing down from the sky, Zong Chan shook uncontrollably, struggling to free himself from Ning Hua's power. He looked up and glared at Ning Hua with unyielding determination. "It's not your fault you were born at the wrong time," said Ning Hua. He disappeared in a second. With an exploding sound, everyone saw Ning Hua appeared in front of Zong Chan. His unrelenting fist will punched through Zong Chan's divine wheel of the Great Path and his body. "Younger brother!" Li Chongxing shouted. Although he could always remain calm in the past no matter what kind of situation he was in, he was seized by grief and rage at this moment, his eyes bloodshot. In the meanwhile, he was hit by Yan Hanxing and hurled away. He glared in Zong Chan's direction, even as he was retching blood. Li Chongxing was not the only one. Everyone was watching Zong Chan. Zong Chan of Wangshan Watchtower was one of the 4 prominent cultivators in the Donghua domain. He was a high-level Renhuang with a perfect great path and seemed to be destined to reach the top of the world and become a master in the Donghua domain. Would he meet his end here today? His body was punched through. A translucent and illusory figure appeared. It was Zong Chan's spiritual soul who tried to escape. Nonetheless, Ning Hua closed his hand and emitted the divine light of the seals, which immobilized Zong Chan's spiritual soul. The translucent figure squirmed and distorted yet couldn't break free. Ning Hua didn't leave Zong Chan any chance. He threw another punch and unleashed the shredding divine light. Zong Chan's spiritual soul shattered and evaporated. His physical body also dropped and was crushed. A remarkable cultivator of Wangshan Watchtower and a future master drew his last breath in this battle. He was slaughtered by Ning Hua, the legendary genius of the Donghua domain. Such a scene seemed surreal to many people. They started to realize that perhaps the domain chief's manor had set out to attack Wangshan Watchtower. Otherwise, Why would Ninghua kill Zhongchan with such decisiveness? If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 2073, Mysterious Person. Chapter 2073, Mysterious Person. On the other side, Chen Yi and Yi Futian turned themselves into a flash of light and ran away. With lightning speed, they raced a very long distance in a short time. The flash of light streaked through the sky in a straight line, moving for miles in a few seconds. Even so, they still couldn't get rid of Ninghua. Behind them, Ninghua was stepping on a golden leaf that was engraved with dazzling patterns of space. The golden leaf turned Ninghua's body into a beam of golden divine light of space that traversed the void. A line of golden dots appeared on the sky, closely following Chen Yi and Yi Futian at full speed. Taking along a ritual implement of space, Ninghua chased after Yi Futian and Chen Yi to stop them from escaping. Just like the Renhuangs from the domain chief's manor, Ninghua didn't care about the fate of other cultivators from Wangshan Watchtower since he already slaughtered Zhongchan. Yi Futian and Chen Yi were the only ones who still had values to him. Ninghua was such an arrogant person who considered everything and everyone beneath his notice. In his opinion, even someone like Li Changxing was nothing but a high-level cultivator who didn't possess a perfect great path and didn't deserve his attention. Other Renhuangs from Wangshan Watchtower were a group of nobodies who were nothing different from common folks. He didn't think too highly of Zhongchan and killed him without scruples, let alone others. So far, only Yi Futian and Chen Yi seemed to be adequate in his eyes and deserve a little effort. Therefore, he chased after them without hesitation and didn't spare a second of thought for other cultivators from Wangshan Watchtower. This guy is already at the highest level of the Renhuang plane. Who would have thought that he also brings the finest ritual implement of space with him? Chen Yi's voice rang out from the flash of light. He was a little frustrated since he thought he was fast enough to shake off their pursuer, especially with the help of a ritual implement. Much to Chen Yi's surprise, as a peak-level Renhuang, Ninghua still carried a ritual implement for speed. He was well prepared to root them out for good. Yi Futian didn't respond. He was still burning with rage and even felt a little guilty. This might not happen so soon if he didn't associate himself with the Millet Emperor. That being said, he also understood that the chief would attack the Wangshan Watchtower sooner or later since he was related to the death of the supreme deity Donglai. After the great Yan ancient royal family made the first move, this would happen eventually. But Yi Futian's involvement surely expedited the process. The most ridiculous thing was that Yi Futian once considered seeking the patronage of the domain chief's manor. Who would have thought that the domain chief's manor that presided over the Donghua domain was the mastermind behind the scheme?